Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Mike Maier this morning. We're doing our little coffee chat. I've got my first cup almost gone, second cup probably going to get started here in a little bit.
I finished my third cup and now I'm on water because I'm going to start bugging out.
Everybody loves a fully caffeinated Mike Maier.
Oh,
So this morning, I was hoping to talk to you a little bit about ball joints. I know that's been a subject in and around the shop lately. I understand there's been some trials, some tribulations, some difficulties when it comes to getting ball joints out and into some of the products that you guys work on. So I just wanted to chat with you a little bit about that and have you walk me through what's going on with ball joints.
well, ball joints with Mike and Kyle. Here we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's wild. We've been slowly producing in our shop more and more and more different part numbers. And we haven't really increased our personnel. We're still small. And we don't really always care to produce literally everything. I mean, we like making things, but after a while, we wanted to go out the door to the customer and have them enjoy it. But we get thrown zingers, and with today's landscape of business, it's like the hip thing to do is to sell to a big conglomerate, you
Hmm.
know, and sell. It's like, but your entire business and or that entire industry sold to a
Hmm.
big conglomerate. I mean, it's literally coming down to things like that. It's crazy. So we start learning, oh, we can't get this as easy as fast. Okay, so what's our backup to that? Oh, we can't get that as easy as fast. Okay, well, we can make that. Oh, okay, this guy went out of business. Well, I guess we'll make that too. And the latest thing was, and you're not, we knew that we had variations in ball joints. And so we really honed down on a couple of different levels with ball joints. We knew that from years ago, we'd get big piles of crappy ball joints. And at the time, we didn't know that our cars were hunting and darting and grabbing ruts because the ball joint was bad. We just hadn't experienced a brand new bad ball joint before. And as time went on, we became acutely aware that you can absolutely buy a lot of crappy brand new ball joints. And crappy is a blanket term for all sorts of different attributes of the ball joint being not awesome. Um, so
Yeah, so let
for
me stop you there real quick. So remind everybody where the ball joints are located and what their purpose is.
Okay, so the ball joint, this is said dingus ball joint. What it does, it's what it goes through your upper control arm and your front suspension and through your lower control arm and your front suspension. It holds your spindle on. And when your suspension moves up and down, it's the pivot point that allows everything to move up and down at the wheel. Okay. You also have little mini ball joints everywhere else, like in your tie rod assemblies and your steering linkage. And basically, it's a socket with a ball in it that allows articulation and movement so the suspension can move and turn and all that stuff. Now, the tolerances of these buggers are pretty important. It's not just whatever, and go on.
Sure.
So if there's a little bit of slop in here, if there's a little bit of movement, it can allow the car, like when you're driving down the highway and you see those like ruts from the big rigs that have like worn into the asphalt,
Hmm.
it'll grab some of that rut and it will dart to the right or to dart to the left, and you'll almost jump into the next lane, and you'll be sweating, and you're like, oh my God, I almost sideswiped that person next to me. It happens on the freeway when the pavement kind of goes diagonal, and maybe they repainted the road straight and the pavement goes off where it used to go, and you catch one of those
Hmm.
cracks and the car jumps.
Hmm.
Uh, that all comes from your pivot assemblies, all your little pivot points. And if one has a little tiny bit of slop, might not be that big of a deal, but you've got an upper ball joint, a lower ball joint on both sides. You've got your strut rod pickup points under the radiator. You've got your tie rod assemblies. So if each one has a teeny tiny bit of slop, it stacks up to a lot of slop. One
Sure.
individually, so much, but a lot of them makes a lot. And so specifically speaking, the lower ball joint of all is the most the biggest culprit for making a car hunt and dart. And we discovered this probably about 20 years ago for the first time, buying the lower dollar stock replacement control arms. You used to be able to buy like a Moog lower arm for like a 65 Mustang for like, I don't know, like 70 or 80 bucks. And then you could buy like the cheapy one for like 30 bucks. So of course everybody's like, well, I want the $30 one because, well, I'm not going to pay for the $100 one. And
Sure.
then fear of not making the sale, you sell them the $30 one. But now you're at the alignment shop with 3 different sets of control arms. You've paid $400 for your alignment because the poor alignment guy is not at fault for your crappy choice in arms. And he can't get the car to hold an alignment.
Mm.
And now you've paid quadruple if you just bought the good set of arms. But at the time, we didn't know people were assembling arms that bad. We just
Mm.
didn't know because we pulled it out of a brand new box like everybody else thinking it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to ball joints, we became focused and we went back. I mean, straight up, we tried to maximize profit. We never made a lot of money. So we said, oh, we can get this ball joint for a really great price. It allows us actually to make some money, which is rad. It's kind of a thing. And but man, I mean, some of them wouldn't fit. Like these are here. I don't know if you can see it in the thing. There's threads.
Sure.
And the first thing we started noticing was we'd put it in and we'd turn it in and they wouldn't go in. Some of them would go in. And I thought for sure it was the machining and the welding that I had done, because there's no way a great big conglomerate that makes thousands and thousands of these ball joints would ever do anything like that.
Yeah, of course not.
No. And then so I stepped up eventually, learning some lessons. I figured out it was the ball joint. It was some weird thread things. And then the other thing we started noticing was we'd turn the steering wheel and it wouldn't come back to center on some cars. So the pivot assembly, when this would pivot inside the socket,
Mm-hmm.
some sockets were really tight on the ball.
Hmm.
Sometimes, and so it was like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You never knew what you were going to get, right?
Sure.
So now here we are making a really cool controller, making a really nice suspension, and we give the customer a suspension quite literally, and we didn't know this, that we don't know what they're honestly going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if they're going to get a good ball joint or a bad ball joint, but we didn't know if that was even a subject. So as time went on, we started honing in and keying in on it and being more and more focused at it. We're like, oh man, that might be the ball joint, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So we fell back into the good old faithful and trusty Moog, and we're super stoked. Moog's been great. We buy stacks of them and everything's been good. And
Sure.
there are upper level ball joints too. There's super rad. We did another video about it, fun with ball joints or whatever, just
Mm.
all the cool options of ball joints. And you can get super badass racy ball joints. One company that makes a really nice ball joint is How. We've got our own prototype ball joint components that we've been working on. But we did that for more racing applications and also learning about different geometries, different heights, ball joints, and different things like that. We can geek out on another time. So we've been developing our own stuff, and we've also been developing, we make our own ball joint rings. So
Mm-hmm.
if you notice this guy, it's pretty thick
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty beefy for a ring. Most of these are only half as thick. So when you weld a tube to it, this does distort just ever so slightly. So we make them a little extra beef so they
Mm-hmm.
don't distort. And it allows for us to get ball joints in and out with more consistency after we've made our arms. Whereas when we first started doing control arms, we were buying these things and they were really thin.
Mm-hmm.
And what ended up happening, I'm going to go on this for a minute because this is actually important. This is a ball joint ring. It goes in our upper control arm. It's what the ball joint screws into. It's what the ball joint interfaces with. And it's It's really important. And the thread in this is super duper special, unique just to ball joints. It's not an Acme thread. It's not a this thread. It's not a that thread. It's not in the machinist handbook. It's a super wonky thread. We cut our own tool for it. It's something from World War II.
Hmm.
And so we make our own tool. I hand cut every one of these on our old LeBlanc lathe.
Hmm.
And the reason why that is because there was an old school cat in North Carolina that made all these for NASCAR, and he knew to make these thick. He knew how to make a beautiful little thread in here that matched all these ball joints. And he understood all this because, well, these are from World War II, and old guys know about this stuff.
Hmm.
No, maybe I'm getting old. I don't know. I was talking to him. He was a Mustang customer of ours, and he goes, "You all having a problem with them ball joint rings?" Yep. I said, he goes, "How about I make you a couple of them ball joint rings?" I said, "Oh, okay." He sends ball joint rings, and they were beautiful. He goes, "Yeah, man, we make those ball joint rings for all them boys out there at Hendrick and all, Childress and whatnot. They've been buying ball joint rings from us for years." And so I go to his shop, and that dude had a beautiful shop. It was an awesome shop. He was so underspoken. And he wasn't messing around. Ball joint rings were super simple for him. And then one day, I mean, I was using his ball joint rings, most everything. If I used a Moog ball joint or a Howe ball joint and his ball joint rings in my product, it was cherry. Things were right with the world. One day he stopped calling me back. And I'm like, "Hey, where you at?" Trying to call, find out. Just gone. Just can't get a hold of him. And so I was like, well, that sucks. So I got a hold of a machinist, local guy, another old school guy, and he reverse engineered it. And he's like, "I've never seen anything like that." The dude's a bad dude. He ended up starting making our ball joint rings. Did a great job. Turned out we went through 6 months trying to get back up and par going with these things because we were trying to get a hold of him. Then we finally got a hold of the other guy. Then the time it took him to get things going. And finally, by the time we actually got him in our hand, what a pain in the ass. So anyways, finally got it going. And he moved out of town. Dang it. But he taught
Hmm.
me how to thread, how to cut the tools, all that stuff before he left. And he's a rad dude. Turns out we found out 3 years later that the first guy passed away.
That would explain it.
Yep. It's kind of hard to call you back.
Yep.
So now we make these. And so we're getting pretty finicky. We know exactly the size. We've been spending the last literally 15 years to where we're at today with these things. It sounds stupid, but it's kind of a thing. So we're pretty focused on what can fit and what can't fit. We've got go, no go gauges. We've done 3-wire gauge testing, which is another subject. I mean, dude, ball joint rings. So now this last fall, we're really behind. We're trying to get stuff out. We're trying to make things happen. We order our latest batch of Moog ball joints, our trustees. We're just getting stuff done. I made 65 control arms during the fall of this year. We got them all powder coated. Everything's good. And the ball joints start falling in. They're not screwing in anymore. They kind of go in. You can kind of see it. Like it kind of goes past the first thread or two right there. You hear that?
Uh-huh.
Not threading. That was it going past the thread.
Wow.
What the heck?
Yeah.
I get my calipers out and I'm measuring these guys. 827 on the major. That's the peak of the thread, 827. The smallest I've been able to get these things to fit is 835. And this is 827. I grab another ball joint, 822.
Oh.
What the heck?
Uh-huh.
So I call up our supplier. Hey, they say, "Oh, we don't know anything. You're going to have to call up Moog." Call up Moog. I look up Moog's number. And Moog's owned by a big conglomerate now. I don't know how long they've been owned by that. We let them know. They say, yeah, the tolerances are 845 to 835. And that's what we had figured out. All the ball joints we're getting are 822 to 827.
Wow.
None of the ball joints can fit.
Did they offer any insight as to why they were not meeting their own specs?
They said they sent it to engineering. I sent them pictures. I offered to send them parts. They said, we'll think about it. I sent them back emails later saying, what's up? The email went dead. Like literally, this email is no longer available.
Wow.
It's like, so they moved manufacturing to wherever they're moving it to or whatever. I mean, there's no way for us to do it. And then, so I call up another large company that's a friend of mine, that makes product like this, uses this ball joint a lot more than we do, I'm thinking.
Sure.
And what I noticed during COVID was they stepped down about 5 thousandths, but they were still within spec. They still pulled torque. They still did it. But I noticed that they were down 5 thousandths because we're making our own parts, right? And it's
Sure.
me making them at the lathe, not 3 employees down,
Well, and
And
you're intentionally doing it to try and minimize those issues, that slop, that tolerance that we talked about.
yeah, because the more issues there are, once it leaves us, the more time we have to spend fixing stuff that sucks and not producing work,
Sure.
and enjoying our day thereafter. It becomes more pain in the ass.
Sure.
So what ends up happening is real quick, fast. What ends up happening is we talked, we can't really get a hold of anybody at Moog anymore. I didn't really push it too much more. I called this other company and they said, oh yeah, well during COVID, we just shrunk the size of our ball joint rings. And I said, okay, so that tolerance has been there since like 1947. And so all the ball joint rings that have been manufactured, all the ball joints are out there between 140, 848, 1.848 and 1.835. You just dumped it down sub that range.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone smokes a ball joint 3 years from now, can they put a ball joint into their controller?
Because there's no guarantee that the sizes won't change in a couple of years.
Yeah, because they made it to a tolerance that was under tolerance.
Uh-huh.
Right?
They
So
took a
then,
universal standard and they made it
not
something
universal.
that's not universal anymore.
Yeah, so I was like, yo, that's BS. I'm not going to do that. So COVID, they shrunk it down about 5, but it still worked. But this time they just went for the wholesale 12 thousandths or 13 thousandths under. And so now Moog doesn't work anymore with this last production run. So anything made like in June, I think June and October, June, May, right in there, I haven't been able to find anything good out of that production run. And so here we are, a little shop. We have no scruples with respect to a company the size of Moog, and figure it out. So we transferred over to Howe. Howe's got a great system, but then that left us with a $200 delta. And then if we had 60 arms.
So $200 delta, meaning the parts just cost more.
Yeah, no, it's like we sold it with a Moog ball joint, but they don't work anymore. So now we got to convert everybody's coilover. Each coilover kit now is $200 more.
Simply because the Hows cost more.
Yeah. And we don't really have a dealership with Howe at the, and you talk to them again, 35 or 40 or 50 ball joints really isn't enough. They want to see thousands or what have you, or whatever, hundreds. And so long story short, it puts you in a pickle. Here you are, you're just you and your wife and a couple of people, and you get to call people up and say, we gotta charge a little more. We don't want to. We know you spent a pretty penny on it, but there's not a lot of margin here. And then $200 per kit over 35 kits kind of becomes a thing. And so you're kind of, again, like just being real. I mean, you're just being honest. It's like you want to act like you're some big company. You want to act like you have some great big deep pocket thing, but these are real challenges of being a small company. You want to give the people the best you can. And the best you can is just being honest and straightforward and doing your very best to let them know as many things as you can. So down the line, it's just easier and better for everybody.
Because the reality is you're dealing with this in real time. It wasn't like Moog sent out a memo 6 months ahead of time to say, hey, we're shrinking these ball joints. Be aware that this is coming. You got a shipment. The expectation was that those ball joints were going to fit and you were going to be able to send those on to customers. And now you're having to deal with these issues in real time.
And what happens is this has been a big problem. This is why we keep producing more and more and more items. And it kind of takes us longer and longer and longer to get products to customers, partially. is because you're buying things with the intent that they're done well.
Hmm.
Done well is just do your job. Do it well. I'm not asking for a super mega polished part with a mirror finish and all these things. I just want the car to drive straight down the road,
Sure.
and it turns out that we're we're held accountable for someone else's actions that we've never met, we never get a chance to work with, and we're the ones that are being held accountable for that person's actions.
And they're not even taking feedback. You might send them photos, you might send them information, and then the email goes unanswered.
Yep. And then our our reputation that's affected by that.
Hmm.
So yeah, man, that was a big one this last fall. And it was so now we're exploring more manufacturing of things inside. So how ball joints are a wonderful ball joint. They're definitely beautiful. And so we're doing more explorations with respect to ball joints beyond that. But how do we do this where whatever product we offer a customer is sustainable, it's replaceable, it's you can keep it up,
Hmm.
you know. We want you to drive the crap out of your car. We want you to wear stuff out. You
Hmm.
know? We don't want it to wear out prematurely, but if you sat there and said, "Hey man, I got 400,000 miles on this thing and I wore it out," I freaking high five, dude.
You bet.
Hell yeah. I changed the seals in my shocks. They're smoked because I did all these drives and it was rad. Rad. We can change the seals because the shocks that we offer are manageable. We can change ball joints because of the way we machine things and we make life easy. So yeah, it's just what we have to deal with as a community, and it's just a learning process. And it's like ever learning. It's like you're always
Hmm.
gonna get these things.
So what are you doing for ball joints now?
Right now, we're just doing mood. I mean, no. I'm sorry. We're just doing how.
Sure.
How ball joints are our current. We have a couple of prototype things that we've been working on for the last couple of seasons. That we're actually we weren't really intending on making it, but it's been working really well. So we have some things up our sleeve that we'd like to come out with, maybe. And so for the meantime, it's going to be how, but it looks like we might have some of our own options here coming soon,
Hmm.
coming out of our facility. So keep your eyes out for that. So
Very cool. Well, that's exciting to hear. Anything else you want to add to this discussion before we wrap it up?
no, I think just learning and realizing that your local car shop is part of the community. We feel the needs and the energy from our customers, and more so our friends. We're here because we want to be part of the community. We're not looking at you guys or looking at everybody like, oh, that's just the person over there. No, it's like we're here because we enjoy talking with you guys. We enjoy working. We enjoy being part of it with our cars. And so us doing this is us trying to create a sustainable um, community within the Mustang scene. And a lot of people don't know that this is going on. So other companies, I'm sure, are going through their versions of this. So when you call up all the other companies, whether it's Street or Track or Total Control or Global West or whatever, each one of these guys on the under, there's, we've all got our dirty laundry like this. And so when you're like, hey, what the heck? Realize that we're all doing it together, you know?
In the pursuit of a better quality product, really, a
Just a
better ride for people.
just a great experience. If
Yeah.
you're gonna drive your car once a month, that better be a rad ride.
Hmm.
You don't want to have one crappy ride this month and then wait for the next crappy one next month. So, you want to make sure if you're doing it just a couple times a year, man, those ought to be great times.
You bet. You bet. Well, guys, I appreciate you taking the time. Mike, I appreciate you taking the time this morning. Hopefully, we're going to get together and do more of these conversations into the future. So if you have topics of conversation that you'd be interested in hearing Mike weigh in on, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. What's on your mind? What are some topics? I know, Mike, you've got a couple that you'd love to visit on in the future. But we welcome your guys' feedback and thoughts. So let us know. We're looking forward to being part of it.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye.